various tissues of the body, and the senses, the organs of the senses, plus the internal organs and their various functions. Now, this vehicle is perfect in God's sight. Therefore, there must be some inhibitory causes that are preventing the perfection from manifesting. And yoga will help you to perfect the different parts of the body by removing these inhibitory influences and allowing the presence of God to manifest. These inhibitory factions are many, but yoga means union with God. And by the performance of the science of yoga, we can express divinity. We can express union with God by doing away with the delusion which makes us seem apart from God and separated from Him. And by doing away with these inhibitions, we can allow His great spiritual power to flow in through us. And there's no healing power like God's power, like His presence within us. God is love. God is light. God is the great comforter of which Jesus spoke. If we can be more and more in His presence through the practice of yoga, then those undesirable inhibitions will be removed. That's why yoga is so important. Just to give you an illustration about how God's power can help us to renew or to allow an organ to function perfectly. Remember, in God's consciousness, we are perfect. The parts of our body are perfect. But through the misuse of our free will and through the attachment to this outward consciousness where perfection does not exist, the organs have become less perfect, let us say. And so let us take up just one illustration with which I am familiar, and that is the fact that certain highly specialized organs, like the heart and like the kidneys, 35 years ago, say 35 years ago, it was thought that those organs would not regenerate. Once they were impaired, the function was impaired, or destruction of the various parts took place. But of late they have found that this is not so. Within the last few years, you will perhaps remember that I have spoken several times about Dr. Kempner from Duke University, who made experiments with a healthy pair of kidneys, and he found that they can stand a lot of abuse. And they do stand a lot of abuse until it gets so bad they cannot regenerate. Not to the fact that the ability is not there, because the power of God is there, but there are too many of these inhibitory causes interfering with the normal healing power of God's presence. And that's what we're interested in. And these kidneys can handle salt and break down certain proteins, and they can do it successfully if, of course, the right protein is used. But unfortunately in this life, the right protein is not used. And so, because of that, these half-digested proteins are given off in the bloodstream, and then they float around as toxins lodging in the different tissues, and that causes trouble with hypertension and many other things which we will not go into. But the important point is this, that if the kidneys would be allowed to regenerate, or if God's power could have a chance, the kidneys will regenerate. But what happens? Well, people go on eating those things which have caused the kidney to break down and become obstructed. They go right on eating them, and of course, the kidney cannot regenerate it. So Dr. Kempner found by using the right food like a protein of rice, which was 100% usable, he found that by so doing the kidney would regenerate and get back its normal function. Why? Because those poisons were not being continually fed to the kidney, so it couldn't regenerate, or so God's power could not cause it to regenerate. So realize that first, that highly specialized tissue can regenerate, because as we said in the beginning, the vehicle is perfect in God's consciousness, but due to delusion has become impaired in function. But by allowing God's great healing power to flow unobstructedly through us, regeneration can take place in all tissues of the body. Let us say that. Yoga helps to remove those inhibitory forces so that the great regenerative power of God's presence, His light and His love is the greatest force in the universe, can allow the perfect pattern which is in His consciousness to once more manifest. That's why this yoga is so important. And we should know how to purify and sensitize our bodily vehicles, which includes its different tissues, its organs, both internal and external, that we express divinity, which is why we are here, to express divinity. So much for the illustration that it can be done, and that God's power is supreme. Any trouble in the body, that same force which caused different malformations in the body can take them away if we remove the inhibitions. That's what yoga helps you to do. That's why it is so important. So first let us take up sensitizing the sight within us. That is, we can see ordinarily only very limited in amount, as you know, because the retina will respond to only certain vibrations. We can see that in our daily life. But, no doubt in God's thought is the perfect retina which will respond not only to solar light that you see out and you see tonight here in the daytime, but it will respond to astral light. It will respond to the Word of God. The astral aspect of it is light. And what is in that Word of God? God Himself. The Word was with God, the Word was God. Now, if you can, through yoga, allow that astral light to play upon the sense of sight within you, with its different functions, it will register more of God's presence. Now, as you look out, you are realizing what you see by sight. What goes with it? All thoughts and feelings and everything from the stimulation, for instance, of those flowers. Within yourself, you look and you find a great feeling, love, and wonderment as to how they were made, and the presence of God in those flowers. So you see, it is not just sight, seeing the flowers, but the sight stimulates corresponding feelings within us, according to our different temperaments and makeup. And so we will now just talk a little bit about this power of sight, how it works, and what we can do about it. Well, for instance, as we look about using the power of sight, of course the eye is like the lens of a camera, as you know, and the retina is like the plate, photographic plate. Now that plate is developed and it is interpreted then by our brain. So within us the same thing goes on. The image falls upon our retina, and there it is interpreted by consciousness within us, not through chemical means as the photographic plate is interpreted, but direct by the power of God within us as the spiritual light in the sense of sight within us, in our brain. And so that is what goes on. Now, God is light, and in that light He manifests. Therefore, if we can focus, as I said a moment ago, the astral light, we are focusing His intelligence and His power within us. That is what we must realize, that the light, the astral light, is just as much a cosmic force as cosmic wisdom, cosmic love, cosmic silence, cosmic calmness. Cosmic light is one of God's aspects. So when you focus that light upon the retina within you, or upon the sense of sight, if you're not familiar with anatomy, that's all right. If you focus that power within you, in that light is God's power. That is what sensitizes your retina to manifest the presence of God within. And so let us realize that now. Now going on just a little bit, we've got to make this interesting, I see, haven't we? All right. Let's go on just a little bit now. About as I was saying about this camera business. We are like a camera. We have the photographic plate, which is our retina corresponding to the plate in the camera. But the thing is this, that astral light is a little different than solar light. Solar light gives us the vision. We can visualize all things through solar light. But as we visualize things through our eyes, we get, as I have said, the corresponding feeling, or the corresponding part of our soul that goes with the visualization. Now, you open your eyes, you see. Now, close your eyes, what do you see? Ordinarily, nothing. Why? Because your retina is not sensitized to the astral light within. Therefore, we must do that. We must allow that light of God to register within us in a conscious way, that is, sensitize the retina to manifest, or rather to record astral light rather than just solar light. And it can be done. And it can be done, as I have said, by allowing God's light to flow into us, and in that light is His great power, His all-knowing power, His omnipresence. God is in the light. That's why meditation is a must for every thinking person, even to sensitize the sense of sight, because God's power is in the astral light within. Now, just a note or two here. When by yoga you remove the inhibitory influences, the spiritual light of God falling on the retina will purify and sensitize it, so it registers the more subtle vibrations of spirit. And that takes us to one point about the visualization of which I have just spoken. We can visualize easy. People say, or they read Master's works about visualizing sleep. Visualizing sleep. All right, you can visualize this room. You can see it, that's all it means. And when you see it, and you see the pictures there of the saints, immediately there are corresponding spiritual vibrations which come in to you and into me. Now you close your eyes, and ordinarily there is nothing. There is no, not even the solar light. But if you keep on meditating, that light will come. As Jesus said, if thine eye be single, thy body will be filled with light. Now as you close your eyes and focus these two outward eyes, physical eyes, at the point of spiritual vision, in the forehead, right between the eyebrows, and keep them there, then you will begin to visualize the single eye which is within each and every one of us. That does not mean just the round ring which you see. The single eye within us, a part of which we use in ordinary physical vision, is not that reflection of the medulla center which you see. It is not that. The single eye is the universal power of sight which is within each and every one of us, to see in front, behind, above, beneath, on all sides at once. That's the single eye of which Jesus speaks in Matthew. Thine eye be single, thy body will be filled with light. How do you think you see the road? How do you think you see the pictures on the altar? By the universal power of sight which is within each and every one of us. One way we're using it just partially when we use it outwardly, but inwardly, when we focus at this point, and when after a while God's light begins to stimulate the retina, then you will visualize the internal kingdom of which Jesus spoke. My kingdom is not of this world. And as you keep at it, more and more of that kingdom you will be able to visualize just like you do outwardly. Why? Because the power of God flowing through the astral light within you, which you have focused, put your attention on, that's all, at this point, will make it possible so that you will record the finer vibrations of His presence within you. And therefore you can know the internal kingdom of which Jesus has spoken. And so, we visualize outwardly by the sense of sight. We visualize inwardly by the sixth sense of intuition. Intuition is the universal power of sight within us, plus the universal power of feeling. It's like you see the roses, you get a corresponding feeling. So when you see the light of God, you get a corresponding feeling of His presence, His great love, and His all-pervading consciousness. That's why yoga is so important. And so, one other thing, another note which I have here I think would interest you. By keeping the eyes focused at a point between the eyebrows, the light from the medulla center will sensitize the retina to this astral or spiritual light. That is the light, the all-pervading cosmic light of God. But in it, or accompanying it, is the universal power of sight. Otherwise, how can you see all about, as you enter through the little star on the spiritual eye, into the internal kingdom? How can you see all about, in front, behind, above, beneath? There's no back and front, so to speak, there, because of the universal power of sight. Now, you cannot register that right off, but you can. By meditation and the practice of yoga, allowing God's great light to flow in upon you, that'll fix it all right. That'll sensitize it. You cannot do it yourself, but He can do it easily. And so the more the retina is stimulated by repeated applications of astral light, the more it becomes sensitive to the astral light, that's all. So people, you say, oh, I don't know, should I meditate? Why shouldn't you? The more you meditate, the more you allow the astral light to play upon you, so to speak, upon the different tissues of your body. And tonight we're talking about the sense of sight, upon the sense of sight, with its various parts and functions, until it becomes perfect to visualize the internal kingdom of God. You see, yoga is important. And so, the devotee being baptized by this light, again and again, the heavenly realm illuminated by the astral sun, it's not illuminated by the spiritual sun, illuminated by the astral sun will become visible. Why? Because then you can see it, that's all. You open your eyes, you see. And so as it says in the Gita, seeing, I saw. Seeing how? Seeing through the universal power of sight, through the astral light within it. And this great world which is beyond it will be known just the same as we know this material world. Only, of course, it is different than this outward visualization. Those who meditate know what it is like, and those who will meditate will find out what it is like. Now, so much tonight for the purifying and sensitizing the sense of sight. That's just one. Next time we'll take a little more about the sense of sight. There's quite a little bit more to what you should do to make the retina respond to the great light of God. That it responds can be attested to by many in this room. And if you will meditate, if you are new in this work, you too will be able to testify that the astral light of God, the presence of God, the great Word, with one aspect of light, is knowable and is attainable. Now we have one or two references at this time I'd like to give you. First, from the AY, which will come under Hindu philosophy. And here you will see the key to what I've been telling you about sensitizing the retina. The Master's own book. Those of you who want to read a little more about it, page 279. And this is what we read. The sensitiveness of the retina is so great that a visual sensation can be produced by relatively few quanta of the right kind of light. So if we can see as we can with this physical light, and I'm sure we all see pretty well, so the retina will respond to other kinds of light, namely the astral light. I'll read it once more. The sensitiveness of the retina is so great that a visual sensation can be produced by relatively few quanta of the right kind of light. Now, this points out that if we meditate just a little even, and allow that light to flow in upon us, we will get results. So those who meditate regularly and give lots of time to meditation need not doubt, but the light of God will come and be visible to them. Then he goes on. Through a master's divine knowledge of light phenomena, he can instantly project into perceptible manifestations the ubiquitous light atoms. That means the ever-omnipresent light atoms. They're all there. If they were not always there, you meditated first as darkness. You keep on, after a while, there's light all around you. So the light atoms are there, but they cannot be perceived unless you sensitize the retina. The actual form of the projection, whether it be a tree, a medicine, a human body, is in conformance with the yogi's power of will and visualization. The will means to keep your attention at the point where you will see the presence of God. And the visualization is to do it. If you open your eyes and you're just dreaming, and you won't see anything. So if you keep looking here, you take your will and look there, unless you put your attention there and visualize, you will not see. But if you do those two things, then you will see the presence of God as the light of the great holy vibration, the Word. Now, from the Bhagavad Gita, we have a reference about the all-pervading light of God, which is within each and every one of us. In the 13th discourse, the 16th line. This light is not divided amid being. Everything is contained in the bosom of the omnipresent light of God, and yet seated distributively. That is to be known as the supporter of being. From that one light we have come. We say that many times. Science has shown all things come from that one light of God, spiritual light. He devours and he generates. Matter, science shows matter is devoured into light, and it comes out from light once more. That, the light of all light, is said to be beyond darkness. And so, wisdom, the object of wisdom, by wisdom to be reached, seated in the hearts of all. In that light is the wisdom of the one Father. So much for the Gita. Now from our Bible, we have one or two references. The first I have given to you. I think I have explained it. Matthew, the 6th chapter, the 22nd verse. If thine eye be single, that body be filled with light. If thine eye be single, if you can register, so to speak, the light of the universal power of sight of God, then your body will be light. That's putting it in plain words. Not if you just see the medulla center, that's wonderful. But the single eye of which Jesus spoke means the single eye with which God sees, the universal power of sight. And in that is the universal power of feeling. Just like you look at the flowers, you see them, but isn't there a corresponding feeling with it? Wouldn't be any good if the feeling wasn't there. So with God, when you see His light, His feeling is there. And what is His feeling? Love. Now another one, St. Luke. St. Luke, 1st chapter, 79th verse. Now when you visualize this light, and not being satisfied with the solar light visualization, you turn inward through yoga and visualize the astral light, the presence of God. Then we read, that is for what purpose? To give light to them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death. If you stay and know only the solar light, you will experience death without question. And you're in darkness, although in the light of the sun. So, to give light to them that sit in darkness and in the shadow of death, to guide our feet into the way of peace. In spite of the fact we're living in delusion, as the Gita says, all men walk the earth wholly deluded, whatever. We have the light of God right at our disposal, and we can know it through yoga. And in that light, we will find perfect peace. Next time we'll go on a little further with the subject, purifying and sensitizing our bodily vehicle, that we manifest what we should, divinity, the presence of God within us. And there's a little more about the sight, which is interesting. Then we'll take up the other parts of the body, show how we can make them respond to the divine light within us, or make ourselves conscious that there's no separation between us and the one Father.